Hey, it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, My Asexual Life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality and all things asexual. I share my asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. If you haven't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button right here, right now. Please hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. So tonight's a very special live stream. It's a Q&A about my Asexual Guide to Sex book, about why I'm writing it, what's going on with the final edits, which are taking ages. If you didn't know who I am the best-selling author of Asexual Perspectives, 47 Asexual Stories. You can go grab your copy on Amazon, and also Fibromyalgia Self-Help Handbook, which is on very special offer at the moment on Amazon. So go and grab your copy of that. So yes, Asexual Guide to Sex. Why did I choose to write Asexual Guide to Sex in the first place? Because most people might think it's the opposite. Like, a lot of asexuals don't want sex. There's probably around 30% of asexuals that will have sex, that do have sex, that are sex neutral, sex positive. And the reason I started to write Asexual Guide to Sex was because one of my aromantic asexual friends asked me in a private message, Sandra, what would I do if I wanted to try sex? And that really shocked me because I wasn't expecting someone who's asexual or indeed aromantic to ask me that question. Then I went in other asexual groups on Facebook and I discovered there were a lot of people who are asexual who don't know what they're doing in regards to sex. They don't know what to do with their hands, their legs, their arms. Excuse me. So the physical act, they don't really understand how to do it a lot. It doesn't come natural to them. And so this was quite difficult. And there's people who have arranged marriages and they find it really hard because they're asexual, going to be married to a sexual person who wants sex. And unfortunately, lots of cultures demands it. I might remind you that no guy owns your body, no person owns your body, whether you're married or not. But in any case, I know this happens, that a woman is expected to have sex with a man she marries in certain cultures, and there's huge pressure to do that, and it's horrible. So those people do want help knowing what to do to please their sexual partner and also to make the experience a lot less scary for them. So that's why I decided to write Asexual Guide to Sex. It wasn't my intention to spend over 4 years working on it. I thought it'd be maybe a couple of years at the most, but that's how sometimes it goes. So it was a couple of years to do the interviews with all the other people, because there's 17 other asexuals in the book, 10 that asexual sex story besides me. And so it took a couple of years. I think it was a couple of years or 1.5 years maybe to do that. It was January, not last year, the year before, I believe. So yeah, it's about a year and a half I think it took to write the stories actually. It was into the second year, but it was a year and a half, I think, from memory. I'm trying to remember back because it's quite a long time ago. And so it wasn't my intention to leave it this long. And the reason why it's taken so long is because it's developed from an asexual guide to sex, which I'm just talking really about the physical act, and the people in the book are giving their wisdom and insight and advice based on their own personal life experience, to actually being a relationships and sex guidebook. So there's loads in there about a healthy relationship, what to look out for signs of abuse and narcissism, how to look into like things like personality types, attachment styles, and things like that that all affect relationships. This book is the book I'd wished I'd had when I was 16 years old and asked rather than actually pressurized I was into having sex for the first time ever. And so for me, it's a very difficult book to write. It's one that it's the hardest book I've ever written in my life, and edited. The whole process of writing and editing it is the most hardest ever. My first ever book, Breakthrough Barriers to Advanced to Get Back into Work in A to Z How to Guide, took me 2.5 years to write, and that was intense and that was hard for me. But this Asexual Guide to Sex is much harder because I feel I've got other people's lives in my hands. I feel I'm being, like a responsible person, that I really care about other people. That in this book, there's stuff that talks about emotional needs, mental health stuff, physical needs, sexual needs. And I feel like I've got all the people that read it in my hands and I've got to take care of them, if you know what I mean. I feel a great deep responsibility to make sure I get the right information to them that's as as in-depth as I can get it within this book. I mean, the book's gonna be over 700 pages. It's gonna be a reference guidebook for life. That's what I want people to have it as, to be by their bedside, to, read it all through and then to pick points out of it that's relevant to their life at the time that can really help them. Because I have been subjected to narcissism and abusive situations. And if I'd had this information back then, I could have saved myself from a lot of heartache and pain and recognized these types of people sooner. And so the book is really difficult to write, edit. I'm on the final editing stages, but with the final editing stages, I'm having to change chapters around, change parts around a bit, uh, some chapters have been changed, mostly some sentences and wording have been changed in paragraphs, and it's really difficult. Like, I spent all day today, like, it's just gone midnight now, and I didn't get up till late, I'll be honest, because I went out clubbing last night, so I didn't start till the afternoon, but I spent a lot of hours on 6 pages. That's it, 2 of which were mostly finished anyway, so it's mostly 4 pages. And it's really intense because I'm trying to get the wording right. I'm trying to make sure the grammar is correct and punctuation, as well as spelling, obviously. And although I've already checked it before, I've written it before, this is like the check-in. This is the intricate check-in where I'm literally reading it page. I'm printing one page off at a time and being so honed in on that one page at that one specific time. And people do read differently, so you can change the meaning of or change how it's read just by changing a comma in the sentence. So I can fixate over a comma for like 10 minutes or half an hour. It's a lot. And so it's very difficult to be working on a book that is so rewarding yet so intense. Like, when I work on it, I feel really tired afterwards because it's intense. We're talking about really difficult feelings and emotions in this book. I mean, the chapter I'm currently working on is narcissism and abuse and what to look for, because you want to get into a healthy relationship with someone first before you have sex with them, right? Because you don't want them emotionally manipulating you or controlling you or abusing you, because you're very vulnerable when you have sex. And so, as someone who's experienced narcissism and abuse on numerous occasions, then, it's an intense chapter for me to write. But also, like, luckily, I'm quite used to talking about this type of thing, mostly in private. But I'm quite used to exploring and talking, but narcissism I talk a lot about on my channel here quite a bit, and abusive stuff, but I don't go into personal details, that much, I don't think. And so anyway, I'm trying to say that it's intense because obviously it can be triggering, it can trigger flashbacks in myself, it can make me think of situations that I've been through. And although I've not written the book to trigger anyone, obviously the title will say the chapter that's got abuse and narcissism in it. So if you want to avoid that chapter, if you get the book, you can. You don't have to look at it. But I think even though it's difficult to look at that type of thing, it's better to look at it and to recognize it and to face up to it than it is to allow people to abuse you in future situations. Sometimes we have to look at things that are really difficult for us in order to make sure we don't repeat that type of thing again, or try not to repeat it and recognize it and get out of that situation as soon as possible. But the book itself, like, it was a long time for me to even not be repulsed, because I'm talking about sex and I'm a sex repulsed asexual. So in the beginning of writing the book, it was very difficult for me because I felt sick a lot of the time because I was writing about sex. Now don't really care anymore. I'm that, like, over the 4 years plus years it's taken me to write, it's not that bad for me anymore. It's quite fine. I've, like, desensitized myself to a lot of it. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I've managed to desensitize myself a lot to it, especially as it's my own book. And now, because I'm doing the edits, it's more logical what I'm doing, it's more practical. So rather than focusing on the intricate details coming to my mind and putting them down on paper in the first place, it's more like rearranging the sentences to make more grammatical sense or to add more meaning to the sentence or paragraph. So it's a lot more technical and logical, if you know what I mean. But the book does deal with some intense stuff. Editing it, like I said, I feel so responsible for the people who read this book. So I want to make sure I get it as right as possible. Nothing's going to be perfect. And, some people may read a paragraph and they'll read it different to whatever the other person reads it as. So it's hard. But I've done this book to help protect people as much as possible, to help people see that it's much better to establish a healthy, committed relationship in the first place, or at least if you don't want commitment, if you want a casual relationship, for it to be with someone who's healthy for you, who's good for you, who's non-manipulative, who's non-abusive towards you. You know what I'm saying? And it's like I said, it's so intense because I'm just focusing on I'm focusing on one page at a time. But that page is very intense because I'm trying to capture the moment and the feelings and my meaning within that whole chapter of that one page. And I'm trying to really focus on it, thinking, does this explain it well enough to someone who doesn't know what I'm talking about? Does the way I phrase it come across right? Is there a chance of it being misconstrued or not? And so it's very difficult. So, have I got the full title of the book yet? So, Asexual Guide to Sex is what's going to be known as predominantly, but there is going to be more to the title than just that. There's either going to be a longer part to the title or a subtitle or both. I have already got in mind roughly what I want that to be, but it depends on the finalization of the book. Am I going to be on the front cover? The answer is yes, I intend to be on the front cover of this book, which is very scary for me. And that's probably another reason why it's taken me a long time to finish a book, is because I believe I should be on the front cover of this book, but it's a very, very out of comfort zone thing for me to do, My intention is to hire a professional photographer. I do have a photograph that actually fits on the front cover, that I think is the right dimensions, like the right DPI for print, and I've tested it and I've designed it myself, and it does look really good. So I could use that, or I could get new professionally taken photographs done, which is most likely what I'm going to do. That's what I think I'm going to do. There's a photography company in my city. They don't usually do book covers. That's not their speciality, but I still think they'll probably be good for the job. It still requires me to have someone do the cover, as in put the wording in the right part of the picture. And like I said, I do actually have a picture that does fit really well, but I think for clarity and I think for the print version, especially of the book, I really probably need something taken that's more professional. So it's hard, trying to get all this done. But before I worry about the cover, I have to finish the final edits, and it's taking a lot longer than I expected. And so if you want to know what the holdup is, the holdup is the fact that I have had some life changes during this book. I have had some procrastination. I have had some sex repulsion. I have found it very intense. And it's hard when I have to keep stopping and starting, because I'm studying under Blue Talks, which is amazing. And I'm so grateful for every opportunity I've got with them, all the podcasts I'm on and coming on about asexuality. The opportunities are incredible for me helping asexuals even more, and that's why I've done it. And it's good for me to learn other skills or upskill my already good skills in different areas to help asexuals more. Obviously, that has an effect on how much time I can give to the book. Like, I have an Oxford talk. I'm talking at Oxford University for Blue Talks, and that does impact how much time I can spend on the book, because I also need to prepare for that talk. There's stuff that has to be given into the event manager, for example, as well as learning all the talk that I'm going to do. So it's tough. It's not easy. I have to stop and focus on that for a bit and then get back to the book. So today's been a book day. So that's been really good for me. I like it when I have a book day because I do feel an internal peace inside my soul when I work on my book. I also feel intenseness and tiredness as well by the time I've finished some pages. So it makes it a lot harder to finish a lot of pages because I know they're intense and it takes me hours just to work on one page. And that's because I'm very dedicated to what I do. I care a lot about people. I care about the welfare of asexuals on a genuine level. I'm not just writing and putting some random book out there. I'm writing it to help change lives and save people from, hopefully save people, I should say, from being in abusive situations. Like, I can't actually predict if that's going to happen. There'll always be abusive people around, unfortunately, but if I can help people to spot signs of abusers to make it less likely that they're going to be subjected to abuse, it's going to be a lot better for them. So I really care, and it's a big deal for me. So you want to know, is there anything about the book that I wished I hadn't put in there? And the answer to that is no. I'm glad I've put it all in there. I decided to keep it as one massive book because I think people should have a healthy foundation for a relationship, or at least a connection with someone before they have sex with them. Also, something I haven't really mentioned that much is it's likely that I will be taking the stories as well as being the main book and putting them in a smaller book so that people have the option of buying the full book with all the asexual guide to sex and relationship advice, or they can just buy the stories. So that is something that I've discussed already with Amazon itself, and it seems that it's going to be fine because I'm my own publishing company under Quirky Books, and I have a separate ISBN. But I need to put in the description that this is the case so people don't get confused. So I've already prepared for that. And I think that should work well for people because not everyone wants the whole big book. But the people who really want to get a strong foundation for a good relationship, who want to understand relationships on a deep level, and who also want to understand the physicality and spirituality and emotional sides of sex and mental sides of sex, they're all in the whole guide. They're not just the stories. So I decided to do the stories because I think there are some people who don't even want to have sex, who are asexual, but they're curious to know what sex feels like and is like from a asexual point of view. And so they just want to read the stories because they have no intention of ever having sex. Having said this, those people might still want to get the whole book now because the whole book is based on healthy relationships and how to have a healthy relationship and relationship dynamics, as well as how to have sex. So you're not going to get all that information in just the sex stories. You're much better off buying the whole book and getting everything in one. So I think it's good to have options for both. Am I scared about being on the front cover? Yes, in some ways I'm really scared about being on the front cover, but I've come to terms with it more now. And in some ways I think it'll be really good because I get a lot of guys that are sexually attracted to me anyway. So I think I may as well use that to my advantage. If I'm on the front cover, I'll probably get a lot more copies sold, I think, with sexuals, which is my mission, is to get asexuality recognised as a sexual orientation in its own right throughout the globe, so that no asexual has to live in fear of ridicule ever again. This means getting through to heterosexuals. And if they see me on the front cover, they're probably more likely to buy the book, I think. So, yeah, even if it's out of curiosity because I'm on the front cover, and that'll help spread awareness of asexuality even more to a global audience to fulfill my life mission. Everything I do is to fulfill my mission of helping asexuals across the globe get more recognized globally, because only when we get recognized in the majority population, which is heterosexuals, I believe, will we actually be able to be free to be us. So it's my mission to get it recognized in its own right globally, which is with the massive population of heterosexuals, to get asexuality recognized and taken seriously with heterosexuals. That is a big challenge, because heterosexuals really don't have a clue when it comes to sex a lot of the time, and asexuality. They don't get it. I was talking to a guy earlier from Facebook dating who I'm friends with on Facebook now, but it's a very difficult conversation because he was saying stuff that asexuals hear all the time, and it's can be so dismissive of our feelings. It's hard because when you meet a new person, you don't know, like, if they're saying it in a bad way or not. But he was saying, "Oh, are you sure you just haven't found the right person to make you sexually active?" And it's like, one is the word "make" is bad anyway, because no one should be making someone do anything. That's a really bad word to use. And it's like, it's so insulting. I don't think you realize how insulting that is. It's like me saying, "Do you want me," I presume he's heterosexual, and it's like me saying to him, "Maybe I should get a guy to FCUK you up the bum because then you might be homosexual." Do you know what I mean? It's just disgusting that he said that. You know what I mean? It's magic dick theory again, which someone talks about in my asexual perspectives book. Magic dick theory is basically when someone thinks, "Oh, I'll stick my dick in you so you can be cured of your sexuality because you can like sex and want sex and need it all of a sudden." It's disgusting. It's like rape. It's horrible. And so this is why it got a very difficult conversation with him, to be honest. And he did say sorry, but he doesn't even know what he's saying sorry about. Like, he's, you know what I mean? It's like, how can you not understand what you're saying sorry about? Because saying sorry when you don't know what you're saying sorry about is not a genuine apology, is it? So I don't know if I'll stay friends with this guy or not. But he did say that, he doesn't really understand asexuality. He's never had an asexual friend before. So sorry, he didn't intentionally hurt me. So I have to see how it goes. But I don't like the fact he's saying this stuff already because it's not nice. And a lot of heterosexuals, they just don't take asexuality seriously. They think it's because of trauma. "Oh, were you with a bad guy before?" It's like, what the hell? And it's not true. Like, I am genuinely asexual. I don't get those sexual feelings. I don't look at a guy or kiss a guy and think I want, like, or need sex with him. It just doesn't happen for me. I can kiss a guy for hours and it never makes me want sex with him. And so, I really hope that Asexual Guide to Sex changes the course of history where sexuality is concerned and everyone is able to open the book and see how asexuals think and feel differently about sex, even the ones that have it. Because I just want things to change. I want asexuals to be confident and comfortable in their asexuality and be able to just be out there and, on dating sites without some prat, excuse my language, like, being an idiot, like, thinking it's tons of other stuff because they want you to have sex with them, basically, and they're so into sex, they can't believe anyone would be without sex or doesn't get those feelings. Like, I was explaining to the heterosexual guy last night that I don't get sexual feelings. "I'm not sexually attracted to you," I said to him. Like, I'm aesthetically attracted to you, like, in your face, not sexually attracted. I'm not interested in the lower part of your body, I said to him. I'm not interested in genitalia. I don't know how much more I can spell it out to these people. And I just really want Asexual Guide to Sex to be the change maker. This isn't just a book for me. This is a whole thing that could change history for me. Like, I want to get into a lot of hands, and it's going to be hard to even do the promotion of this because a lot of the time you can't do like ads because it's got the word sex in there. Like, for example, Facebook ads won't let you do stuff with sex in it. Although they did once have a video game that was very sexual in its content, and people were complaining about it, but got loads of people watching it because it was disgusting, actually. It was like a guy having to look down a woman's top or something and get a star or something, or pulling it out, and it was really weird. It's like they have a guy was in a boat with a woman, and she's got, like, low top, and he's fumbling. Oh, it's just disgusting. And it got low I reported it, to be honest, because I thought it was disgusting, like, if they're not gonna allow books about sex on there, mine's an educational book about sex, they shouldn't be having a video game where women are like a piece of meat for guys to just use in the video, basically. I was a bit disgusted, to be honest. But, mine is a sex education, and also it's a safe sex book. I'm promoting consent and sex and talking about consensual sex and promoting consent and sex together. That's what I'm trying to say. And so it's a safe sex book. It's not about glorification of sex. It's about the raw, real, true reality of sex and how that impacts people emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And there's a lot of books out there and a lot of people that talk about sexual energy. And some people don't believe you can, like, live a good and happy life without converting your sexual energy into something or having sexual energy. I'm not of that type of mindset at all. I believe that's limiting beliefs. I believe you can have no sexual energy or feel you have no sexual energy and still make a big impact in the world, still get stuff done, because there's lots of different types of energy in the world, not just sexual. There's energy that you just want to do stuff, that you're active, and that doesn't have to be sexual. It can just be like fire within you. You're revved up to do a cause, help with a cause, help with a concern, something you're passionate about. Passion doesn't have to be sexual. Passion be about what you're interested in, what sparks your imagination, what makes you feel great and fantastic, what makes you want to do something, what drives you forward. That doesn't have to be sexual. And the fact that people keep thinking that stuff is sexual energy and there's no other energies, like that's a be all and end all life, is ridiculous. Some people think I have got sexual energy. That's up to them if they think that about me, but I personally don't feel I have sexual energy, because I don't feel I'm sexual. I feel I have an energy about me, and I do feel that I have like a romantic energy and probably a passionate, sexy girl energy from an asexual point of view. And I like that about myself, but I don't think it's sexual energy as in sexual drive, because I have arousal sometimes, but I don't have a drive for sex whatsoever. Like, I never look at someone and want sex, and I don't have a drive to have partnered sex at all, and I don't have a drive for sex itself. So, yeah, it's interesting, and there's parts of the book that's been harder for me to write because I'm not experienced in that area. What I mean by that is there's sex toys, for example. Like, I've gone through different sex toys, and I had to do a lot of research about that because I've never used a sex toy in my life. It's not something I've thought about doing prior to writing the book. When I write the book, I'm like, oh, maybe I should just try one because everyone seems to be having so much fun with sex toys. And sometimes it can be a good alternative for asexuals if they've got like arousal or a high libido, I think. But I'm personally never thinking that way. Like, I've never thought that way before the book. I just think it's quite interesting. I get interested in stuff with my own book. But yeah, so I had to do a lot of research about the sex toys, like I said, because I've never used it. I've got a friend who uses them, and obviously I know some other people do. But for me, that was quite cringy, some of it, because like looking at like vibrators and stuff when I'm a sex repulsed asexual. When I'm first looking at it, I'm like, oh my god, I'm quite like a lot better with it now because I've been working on the book for so long. I'm quite like, oh right, that's a vibrator, right? I'm really not that bothered anymore. And I can see maybe some people like the sensation of it. I'm a bit more like, what can I don't know what word to use, bit more okay about it. But when I was actually writing that, it took me a lot of research because I didn't have a flaming clue what really happens with them. And so I had to do that. And there's sex toys that trans people can use that I've included in the book because I wanted to be trans inclusive, even though I talk a lot about guys, particularly in the book. And I talk about this in the book. I refer to guys a lot, but you can swap it out for any gender because that's the gender I personally have the most experience of. But I've tried to make it as inclusive as possible, the book, so it doesn't just feel like it's male or female. There are other people included in the book. So I've spent a lot of time doing what they call the front matter of the book, which is establishing why I wrote the book, the benefits of the book to the reader, uh, the audience of the book, which people will be suited to read the book, which people won't be suited to read it. And obviously, it's got my personal story in there as well. And every time I write stuff for the book, I love doing it. I feel at one with my soul, but I also find it very intense because I'm literally working with a ton of emotions in this book because it's very like it's all like the experience I've had throughout the years because I am an asexual who's had sex in the past. So I'm putting my own experience in, plus I'm giving experience that I've learned over the years through help about having healthy relationships. Plus, I'm like obviously trying to be as objective as possible because I'm a sex repulsed for me asexual, but I'm not sex repulsed for other people who want it, like it, and it's enjoyable to them. It's consensual, everyone's having a fun time. So that's kind of really strange, the fact I can write about sex in a positive way, but I'm personally sex repulsed at the same time. So it's kind of like having that balance between my personal view of sex and also a view of like sex can be nice and good for some people and enjoyable for some people. You know what I mean? It's I've been able to do that really well, actually. I think I've surprised myself at how well I've been able to do that. I feel it's well done. Obviously, I'm not the reader, so only time will tell what the reader thinks. But from my personal point of view, I don't like sex for me personally, but from a point of view of other people having it, there are ways that I know how people can enjoy it more, even people who are asexual. So I've gone into these ways in the book. So I have to like put myself in the position of if I was to try sex and if I was to like sex again. I never really liked it in the first place, but I'm on about if I was to have sex again, if I was to try sex again, like what would I need to do in order to be comfortable about having that? So these are the advices and explanations of what I'm giving in the book. The book encompasses so much, but it does help people who are asexual who are thinking about having sex for the first time, about what to do physically, but also how to mentally and emotionally and spiritually prepare for it as well. So it's a very holistic book as well. This book encompasses everything. It's like sex education, safe sex book, consensual sex book, interesting stories about real life asexuals that have had sex in the past. It's a bit of everything for everyone, you know? I'm really scared. Crazy Sinjab. What are you really scared about? You are welcome to say. Um, so yeah. So I'm not sure if you're saying you're really scared of having sex. The Asexual Guide to Sex is not a book telling asexuals to have sex at all. If you don't want to have it, you don't like it, you don't need it, you don't have to have it. Like, I do not recommend having sex if you really don't want it, are really personally repulsed by it and hate it for yourself. The book does not talk, that's not what the book's about. The book's about helping those asexuals who are thinking about having sex for the first time ever and may be interested in doing that. It's a book that says don't have sex until you've read me to make sure you're making an informed choice and decision if sex is actually right thing for you to have. And I'm not sure if you're saying that you're really scared because someone's wanting to have sex with you or because you want to try it but you're scared. I don't know what you're really scared of, if you do want to share anything. But the book is to help people who are scared of having sex to like be more educated about it and understand what's involved more. If someone's apprehensive or is scared, if I presume that's what you're talking about, you're scared about having sex. Obviously, you don't have to have sex. Like, no one owns your body, whether you're in a relationship, married to them, or whatever. They do not own your body. In fact, I get very disheartened when I keep hearing guys think that when they get married, like guys who are religious, for example, who don't have sex before marriage, they think that when they get married, because they like sex, then they are given it, you know? Crazy Sinjab. I was born and raised in the Middle East. I understand. I'm almost 100% sure I'm ace. But my parents have arranged a marriage for me and it's happening next week and my partner's expecting us to have something. Oh, sugar. Um, that is really difficult for you. I mean, I would advise talking to your partner and telling him up front before you get married. I would really advise that. There's someone I know who's Indian and she had an arranged marriage with her partner, but she told her partner up front before they got married that she's asexual and she's actually aromantic as well. And he accepts that about her. And from the post she's writing, it's really good. He's very conservative and doesn't believe in anything like that. So when you say he doesn't believe in anything like that, do you mean he doesn't believe in talking about it? You have to talk about it with him, though, because you need him to know that. And in a healthy relationship, people need to be able to discuss things openly and honestly for the betterment of the relationship. You're better to tell him now so he's got the option to back out if he doesn't want someone who doesn't like or want or need sex. If you don't like or want or need sex, you might. Obviously, I don't know if you're sex repulsed or not. But you're better off to tell him now and be upfront about it than him expecting that after marriage. Give him the option to back out. Tell him up front. I know that in your culture it's really difficult. For example, he calls anybody part of the LGBTQIA mentally ill and says he deserves death. And when tried to explain, he smacks me down. That's no good. Don't get married to him. I'm honestly saying to you, don't get married to him. This is an abusive guy. You can learn. I mean, my Asexual Guide to Sex book, I'm literally talking about narcissists and abusers. and this guy is no good for you. I'll be honest with you, he's no good for you. It's not my choice. My parents are forcing me. You have to tell your parents he's no good for you, or not do it. I just I know what you're saying, but just think, if you're an adult, you can still make your own choices, even if it's against your parents' wishes. I would not be with a guy like that. If he is smacking down your opinion, just think what he could do to you in the relationship. He's no good for you. I'm being totally honest. I know that might not be what you want to hear because it might make you feel worse, but I'm telling you the truth. Don't marry this guy. He's bad for you. Any guy who literally won't allow you to have your own opinion and stuff. It's a tradition in the Middle East, and the police can get involved if try to resist. It's can you get your parents to get you someone else? Just say you don't think he's suitable? Do you're willing to, like, have an arranged marriage, but not with this type of guy because you feel you can't speak to him? Is that possible? So you're still pleasing your parents, but saying you don't feel this is the right guy? Is that possible? Would that be a way out of this? Because, I that if that guy has that attitude, it's he could be abusive, or well, it is abusive what he's just said to you there. Has already offered over 150,000 SAR and 10 camels for me. Oh my God. I don't know what to suggest because obviously you're in a different country to me, and if your life's threatened, then you do stuff for survival, don't you? But that is dreadful because he clearly is an abusive guy. If he will not listen to what you say, if he smacks down the conversation, he's a narcissistic abuser. You know? I mean, is there anyone you can go to help for in your country? Saudi Arabia, he's considered really nice. Yes, but narcissists are like that. Narcissists, I don't know if you've watched any of my videos about narcissists, but narcissists are charmers. To the outside world, they are charming. They are charismatic. They're like butter wouldn't melt in their mouth. Behind closed doors, they're the opposite. It's like being in prison with them. It's awful. I don't. I think you should. It's hard because if your life's in danger, what can I say? You know, if your life is in danger, what can I say? I, I would tell you to go to, get some help over there if there's any authorities that would listen to you, any counselors, any therapists, or anything like that, because it's not going to be good for you to be with him. Yes, he told me his plan for me is to keep me inside all day, and he wants over 12 plus kids. I would say you need to get out of that situation. I mean, clearly he's an abuser and controller and manipulative. I would say get help and get out of there and do whatever it takes. Because otherwise, if he's saying stuff like that, you're just going to be his prisoner. It's awful. Is there anyone you can go to for help that you can legally and safely leave that situation? I don't know what to say to you. It's awful. Because he's not going to listen to you, is he? You can't reason with people who are unreasonable. My sister is always here for me, but she keeps telling me to suck it up. Well, that's no good. It's no good sucking it up. It's not a good attitude to have, Unfortunately, although you say your sister's there for you, she obviously isn't there in terms of, like, understanding that he's abusive and that, you really need to not be with him. Is there any chance your parents could be talked around to not being with this guy? Or is it just your parents don't care and it's a matter of transaction for them, the money and the camels? Because I know, unfortunately, some of the people we love dearest, our family, can hurt us the most and not have our best interests at heart. He's not that abusive compared to her husband. He punched her stomach while she was pregnant. I don't understand that. He's not abusive compared to her husband. Who's her oh, compared to your sister's husband, are you talking about? Oh my god. But if your sister accepts that being in a relationship with him, that's why your sister's attitude is like that. Neither of you should be in those relationships. Neither of you. I would recommend getting some help. I don't know what else to say. I'm not in your country. I know in countries it's very different in other cultures. You know, none of it is right. You know, I would say if you've got any way of getting out of it safely, then to do so. You know, it's it's if I call the police, they'll just force me to get married or abuse me with him. Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. I don't know what to say to you. It's horrible because people are abusing their authority, they're abusing their power and position with you. I don't know what else to say to you. I want to run away, but my fiance keeps my passport in the safe. Oh my god. Well, yes, if you could get away safely, I would suggest getting away as soon as possible. Have you got a women's refuge in your country? Is there anything like that? A women's refuge? He won't even let me get my driver's license. Oh my god. Have you got any identification with you? Mm. I don't know. There must be some places that can help in your country, isn't there? You have your phone. But he put child locks on it. Oh my god. It's so bad. It's so abusive. I talk about all this stuff in my Asexual Guide to Sex book, actually, about all the signs of narcissism and abusers, and this is just like the worst of it, isn't it? In reality, it's just awful. That's what I'm writing. That's why I made the book into a bigger book than just a guide to sex, so it can help people not to get in these situations. But I know in your country, it's not your fault. And not well, it's not anyone's fault getting into these situations, but obviously in some countries it's we've got an easier choice to get out of it, if you know what I mean, because there's certain things we can do. But even in the UK, like some people are financially tied to the person they're with. Years ago, I was financially tied to a guy who was very bad guy for me because I lived with him. Now I live on my own. I don't want to live with anyone in a relationship, even if I get into a relationship, because I was financially dependent on a guy. And when you're financially dependent on the guy and you've got nowhere else to go, you're stuck like in prison. It's horrible. Never again will I do that ever, you know? That's why I'm glad that's all over. It's a long time ago now, it's over. But I don't know what to say to you. You have your cat at least. Yeah, but he might be bad to the cat. You know what I'm saying? Guys who are abusive usually abuse animals as well. Um, but he tried throwing her out the window once, and I'm scared she's gonna hurt her while I'm gone. Yes, yeah, uh, he's a terrible person. I don't know if there's anyone you can go to in your country to get away. Sorry, English isn't your first language. I don't know if there's anyone in your country you can get to help you get away, like a friend, or like you say, if the police are in on it as well, if the police will just abuse you and take advantage, it's no good going to them either, is it? I wish there was something more I could suggest, but I'm not actually a therapist myself. I have done some basic counselling skills and, you know, but I'm not an actual qualified therapist or a medical practitioner. So I don't know if there's any helplines in your country. Like in the UK, there's something called Samaritans that you can phone up. I don't know if there's any anonymous helplines in your country that you can get like help because it's like trafficking you, isn't it? Basically, I don't know if there's anything like that, any charitable organizations that could help you out in your country. I don't know if there's anything like that, but I can understand your fears and worries. They're genuine, you know? The best idea is to swim or get a boat out of here. Oh god. You need yeah, and you need to, like, ideally have your passport, don't you, for as well, to get away from that, or driver's license. Is there any chance you can even get it? Have you got any oh, you said you put child locks on your phone, didn't you? Ideally, you need to take photographs of your driver's license or passport if you or anything. Do you think I should attack him while he's asleep? I don't recommend doing that, no. I don't recommend attacking people. I don't recommend attacking people at all, you know? So, I I'm not in I don't recommend attacking people. I can't recommend doing stuff like that, can I? I don't it's up to you what you do, but I can't recommend stuff like that. I don't recommend violence at all. But, I mean, obviously, if you get into a situation where you have to protect yourself, you have to protect yourself, but it's up to you how you protect yourself. But yeah, I think you should try and well, you only you can decide what you're gonna do, you know, whether you're gonna stay or escape, isn't it? Like I said, I'm not a qualified therapist. I'm not a medical practitioner. I would always suggest you get some actual qualified person to help you. Hold on, I think he's waking up. I have to go. Okay, lots of love to you. So, yeah. Anyway, so I presume he's there already with you, yeah? Even though you're not married to him yet. Anyway, I wish you the best of luck with whatever you decide to do. It's always a difficult situation, that type of thing, you know? So, yeah. It's difficult for people, Anyway, that's why I've written the book, is to understand signs of abuse and narcissism and to have a healthy relationship, hopefully, in the first place before we get into sexual situations, because it's important to keep ourselves safe as much as possible and to be our own cheerleader in life and to be our own advocate and to keep ourselves as safe as possible. Because if you do have sex, it's meant to be an enjoyable experience, meant to be a nice experience. And if for any reason it's not going to be, it's much better to be insightful about that before it happens and to understand the dangers. I mean, sex is the most intimate thing you can ever do physically with someone because obviously it's the most vulnerable and the where you're most likely to be able to physically get hurt. So internally. So it's really important that we have a book out there that helps asexuals to understand sex and if people do want to do that, what happens, how it feels to asexuals, how asexuals think and feel differently, and that's why I've written the book to not glorify sex at all. There's so many books on the market that just glorify sex and say how good it is and do this and do that and how wonderful it is. The book Asexual Guide to Sex isn't like that. It's a sex education book that's all about consent and healthy relationships and that sex isn't for everyone and it's much better to make an informed choice of decision whether you want to have that or not and to actually learn all about it before you even make that decision if you're thinking about having it. But it's a book that very much at the beginning says, do not have sex if you do not want to. Right? I do not recommend anyone asexual or otherwise to have sex if they don't want to do it. Right? You should only have sex if you're thinking about having it and are interested in doing it and want to do it and want to try it out, not doing it because some person tells you to do it or some person demands it if you do it or some person is forcing or cajoling or conniving or manipulating you into having it, and I made a mistake years ago of having sex because I wanted the guy to stay with me because I loved him, and that was a big mistake, if you like. I was pressurized into it, which wasn't good. The guy did years later, the first guy I ever had sex with, he did actually apologized to me years later for the way he treated me and pressurized me into doing that, which I was glad about. It's not very often guys do that. He did actually do that years later. That still doesn't mean to say it didn't happen. And, back then I lacked self-love, and I thought I had to have sex in order to keep a guy, and that's just wrong. If a guy can't love me for who I am, regardless of whether I have sex with him or not, then he doesn't truly love me, and he's just incompatible with me. There are many people that are incompatible for us as asexuals. I think it's hard because I think we have difficulties getting compatible partners in terms of the fact that we either don't like sex, or we might not like it to the degree that sexuals like it, or might not instigate it like sexuals do. And there's a lot of discrepancies between what we think and feel about sex and what they do. But also, even like I said, asexuals that do like sex, a lot of them still don't want it as much or as frequently, usually, as a sexual person would. That's not true for every asexual, but I think in the main, we're less likely to instigate it if we're going to have it. And I just think it's important to remember that you don't have to have sex, that no one owns your body, that everything is up to you. And there are ways that asexuals can feel better about sex if they are doing it. And obviously, if it's a healthy relationship. If it's not a healthy relationship, then it's going to feel like more scary and anxiety inducing, because sex is supposed to be a fun, enjoyable thing, apart from sexuals see it as a very I'm obsessed and addictive thing and got to have the thing. Rather, sometimes they don't have so much fun with it because they're too focused on the end outcome than actually enjoying the process, if you know what I mean. Which is why a lot of guys don't get second dates with sexuals, and why a lot of sexuals don't have much luck in sexual relationships, because they're actually bad at sex. A lot of heterosexuals are really bad at sex. I found this out because I'm an asexual who's had sex in the past. I've had it with 5 guys, all were my boyfriend at the time, not at the same time, at individual times. And from that experience, only 1 out of the 5 was any good at doing that? And so a lot of heterosexuals aren't good at sex. They're a stick it in, stick it out person. And that is just boring. It's not fulfilling. It doesn't really bring you closer. It's just mechanical. And there's no wonder it puts a lot of people off. And so that's why some guys, they just don't get many repeat dates with the same person a lot of the time. If someone's good at sex, obviously, then they probably do get repeat customers, I'll say, because it's not like a lot of the time the hookups are just like a customer relationship, isn't it? It's not really like they don't care about the person. Like I was talking about like sex is not the same as love to the heterosexual guy that I was dancing with last night. And he's like, well, it is. And I said, well, it's not, because you could have sex with someone you don't love. And he had to think about that. I said, you could have sex with someone you don't love. Therefore, sex and love are completely different things. Because if they were the same thing, you would not be able to have sex with someone you didn't love. But you can have sex with someone you didn't love. And he's like, I haven't had sex for years. I'm like, because you haven't had the opportunity presented to you, which he said. And I'm like, that's why. But if someone in a nightclub wanted to have sex with you, then you do that. Which he's pretty much like, yeah, the opportunity hasn't arisen. And I'm like, but it's probably because I think a lot of British girls actually are not that into foreign guys like I am. I bet the foreign guys really wished I liked sex, didn't they? But I don't. And I was trying to explain to him about asexuality, and I'm hoping that the Asexual Guide to Sex book will finally show people, rather than tell, but show people who are not asexual. Obviously, the book's aimed at asexuals, but it's also going to be for heterosexuals who are lacking experience in sex, are confused, don't really know what they're doing, or want some more advice. It'll be good for heterosexuals to experience the difference of how asexuals think and feel differently, because the book is like an immersive experience. When you're talking about your own personal asexual sex story in the book, as me and 17 others are doing this, then it's like an immersive experience. It's like you're stepping into the shoes of that asexual person at that time in their life and feeling what they feel and thinking what they think. It's like a first person type of perspective, I feel, when I read it back personally, the other people's stories. And so that's why I think it's going to be an excellent book for people to read, because you can it's a bit like a virtual reality experience, I think, personally, because when I'm reading the other people's stories, I'm like, "Wow, I can really think and feel how this person is." And some of it is very different to my own sexual experience, you know? Some of it's a lot more experimental, like, I don't do BDSM stuff, for example. There's a person in the book that's tried that and a lot of different types of stuff, and it's like, I wouldn't touch that with a barge pole myself, but it's good for other people to learn for different people's experiences. And so it's really important that we understand that before we get into a sexual relationship with anyone or even have sex, we should make sure we feel as safe as possible. And if we're an asexual person, the more that we understand what's involved in sex, the less scary it can be, the more in control we can feel about our own sexuality and about what's going on sexually. You know, when you come from a position of more personal power, by being well informed about what sex entails, it empowers you to feel more comfortable and better and stronger in that moment, you know, which I think is imperative for asexuals. Like, it's very rarely that I instigated sex in the past. Mostly it was my ex doing it, but there was a couple of or few occasions, I can't remember how many, where I might have instigated. I think I remember 1 or 2, I don't know the exact amount, but that was because I want to be in control of the situation. Like, I felt that by instigating occasionally, because I knew he wanted it. It wasn't like, "Oh, I decided I just wanted to do that," because 'cause I'm not really thinking about sex, right? It was a case that he was in the mood for sex, and rather than him just, like, being proactively like, "Let's get on the case now," it's more like so I'm just thinking, did I actually instigate sex or was he instigating it? Because obviously I knew he was in the mood for that, if you know what I mean. But then he was always in the mood anyway, because he's a heterosexual that was sex driven. So, but what I mean by instigating, like, I would probably start the process of more. I don't know if that makes sense. It's hard for me to think about instigating now because I can't even. I just remember. I think 1 or 2 times I did because I remember thinking I'm instigating it now. And I remember it being from a position of personal power that if I instigate this, I'm more likely to be in control of the situation. Whereas if he does that, which he did most of the time predominantly, and when we did have sex, I just let him get on with whatever positions he wanted to get on with. So I was very flexible like that with him. He must have liked that actually, because I was very like, but not he didn't do BDSM stuff. I would never accept that or be into that type of thing. So he never even talked about that, or as far as I know, he didn't even think about that. I don't know of him ever to even mention that ever, not in even TV stuff we watched and that. So I didn't have that to worry about, you know, because I wouldn't let a guy do stuff to me like that that I don't want to do and hate and very repulsed by, you know? And so when I remember the instigation, I think I was kissing him and I knew it was going to lead to sex because I knew that's what he wanted anyway. That's what I'm thinking that I was doing. And sometimes, you know, if you're an asexual who's okay about having sex, which I was okay back then, not that I really wanted it, but I was okay about doing that then I think sometimes it can be interesting to see if you want to instate if you know that's gonna happen anyway, and put yourself more in a position of control and personal power. It can be quite empowering to do that sometimes, occasionally. It's very interesting. I think if you're an asexual that's going to try sex, it's good to experiment with what you like and don't like, but whilst informing the other person of what you're doing, because you might try something and you might hate it. I put all this type of information in the Asexual Guide to Sex book, you know, that you might try something and you need to let your partner know or potential partner know, look, I might try this sexual thing, but as an asexual person, I'm not sure I'm going to like it. So I'll try it with you. But if I don't want to do it ever again, then I'm letting you know that now up front. I might not ever want to do it again. And if I don't, I won't do it again. So that they know the boundaries, they know where they stand with you. They're not expecting that you might want to do that thing forever. You might just want to do a one off. But I do talk about this in the book that sometimes when you do things once, a sexual person thinks, oh, they'll do it again with me because they've done it once. So why not? And a sexual person might love that thing so much with you that if you don't want to do that, they might not end up being in a relationship with you because you might be incompatible. You have to understand that if you're an asexual person who is thinking about having a relationship with a sexual person, that's actually a huge risk for you. Like, there's a lot of society that talks about, oh, how sexuals like sacrifice so much for asexuals, especially if they don't have sex, right? But asexuals sacrifice a lot for sexuals if they do have sex, right? And we have the potential of being in a relationship with another asexual person that doesn't ever require sex from us, right? And if we get into a relationship with a heterosexual person, we're risking our whole life of never being with an asexual person that totally accepts us for who we are and doesn't require sex from us. So we are risking a huge amount. We are sacrificing so much for heterosexuals. And I think it's unfair of heterosexuals just to think they're the ones doing all the sacrificing. Even if we're in a relationship with a heterosexual person who's decided they're not going to have sex, they're going to be with us, right? There's still always that kind of like intensity and thing in the back of your mind that maybe the heterosexual person will change their mind. Maybe they will want sex one day. Maybe they're doing sex behind my back. Maybe they're cheating on me. Maybe they're just watching porn all the time. Maybe they're just lying to me. There's a whole lot of anxiety. For me personally, I'd much rather be with an asexual person guy because I get all those kind of worries, and it's very intense worries, and it's quite harmful mentally, which can have a physical effect. It's much better and more relaxing if I ever get to be with an asexual guy, because then I know that if sex is off the table, if there's an asexual that's not interested in having sex or doesn't mind not having it, quite open to not having it, some asexual still want to try the sexual experience, then it's going to be much better for me. But with a heterosexual person, I've got all that worry about sex, and what if they change their mind, and what if they decide one day they can't live without sex? You know what I mean? Where I don't have that with an asexual person. So I think asexuals risk and sacrifice so much, even if they're in a relationship with a heterosexual who says they're not going to have sex. Most heterosexuals that say they can live without sex forever are not actually telling the truth, unfortunately. I think there's rare exceptions to that. I think if an asexual person is with a heterosexual and the heterosexual person hasn't had much sex in their life, they're really not that bothered about it. They don't talk much about sex stuff, and they really not looking at people in a sexual way. Maybe it's possible, but even some people that say they can live without sex and they might not talk to you about sexual stuff because they know you don't like it, they could still be off doing sexual stuff with other people. So I'd be very careful and wary of that. Right. But there's someone in my Asexual Perspectives book that says about being with a bisexual person and they're not bothered about sex. And so the asexual was fine with the bisexual. So I think it all depends on the person, but I know that most heterosexuals are into sex. And if you're an asexual person who has tried sex in the past but not understood really what to do, then the Asexual Guide to Sex book will be great for that. Or if you're an asexual person who's just curious and doesn't even want to have sex, then you could look at the book then as well. Thank you for your advice. I'm currently locked and hiding in the bathroom because after he woke up, he thought he heard a person's voice come from my phone and got extremely violent and called my dad. Oh my god. Dearing me. It sounds horrible, the situation you're in. Like, it's I think you should ask your parents to not get married to this guy. I think you need to just say to your parents, you realize that they've had a good offer, but this guy's not going to be suitable for you. And I think to try and talk your parents into seeing your point of view, you know, because if your dad's got to come in that situation, he must know the person's no good for you. It's worth trying to talk to your parents. I don't know if your parents will listen, but I think it's always worth trying to talk to parents. Some parents aren't very sympathetic or empathetic and don't care, unfortunately. So it depends what type of family dynamics we're in. A lot of times when we end up in abusive relationships as well is because we've had childhoods that aren't so good, where we've had like caregivers. This doesn't have to be just parents, it could be aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, whoever's looking after you at the time, who have been dysfunctional and who have been abusive or narcissistic themselves. And sometimes if you're in a family dynamic that's abusive and narcissistic, it spans the whole generations of the family. It can be like not just parental or grandparental, it can be like cousins, and you can lose your own sense of reality because you can be in such destructive and bad family dynamics that the whole family is like abusive and narcissistically corrupted. it's a bit like, how can I describe it? It's a bit like having a piece of software or a floppy. Remember that years ago they had those floppy disk drives, and you put it into the computer and it's actually corrupted. That's what can happen in family systems that are abusive or narcissistic, which means they don't have the child's interests at heart, you know? Narcissistic people have their own interests in heart, their own self-importance. You're a commodity to them usually. They can discard you when they don't like you or want you anymore. It's very problematic, and a lot of it is interwoven in family systems. I've learned a lot about this type of thing since doing the Asexual Guide to Sex book. Actually, I have to say that one of the things that's changed my perspective of my life and has been the amount of research I've done about narcissism and abusive people, and the amount of information I've put into this book to keep people safe and to protect people, hopefully, as much as possible. I mean, obviously, you're responsible for your own life and your own choices. It's not me or the people in the book. But I hope to have given some guidance in the book, and I've learnt a lot more about attachment styles. I had to put some information about attachment styles in the book. I mean, that can be a whole book in itself, so I haven't gone into depth with it, but basically, family dynamics and attachment styles, they come from childhood, and if you haven't had supportive parents who were there for you to make you feel safe and special and love, cherished, and adored as who you are, this can lead to lots of abusive situations, you know. And we think those people nearest and dearest to us can have our best interests at heart, but it isn't always the case, sadly. I've known of quite a few people that come from bad relationship dynamics, and it's difficult, But with my Asexual Guide to Sex book, I really hope people read it and get a lot of information out of it. I still doing the final edits. I've still probably got 100 pages of edits to do. Like, it's like taking ages. Like, I just do it. Like, today I've worked on 6 pages. That's a lot actually in a day for me to do. It's taking me hours just to do that. 2 of which were mostly pretty much finished anyway. So mostly 4 pages, and it's just like hard. But it's hard because I need to make sure the information's correct in it, and I need to as much as possible. And I need to make sure that I'm helping as many people as possible, you know? So, the book does have a disclaimer in it that I'm not a medical professional, that I'm not a therapist, neither is any of the interviewees in the book, and it is the person's sole responsibility for their own life and what they choose to do with it and what they choose to put up with or what situation they're in. Like, no one else is responsible for anyone else but the person themselves. Obviously, if you're subject to abuse and you can't leave the situation easily, then that is difficult. But I'd still say to try and get out that situation if you can as safely as possible, and try and get some help, like try and get an organization to help you, try and get a therapist to help you, try and get a charitable organization. If the police will be helpful, then get them involved. If they won't, then obviously, you have to look elsewhere. But I just think, that everyone's responsible for their own selves, but it is hard if you're with someone who's not good and you're financially tied to them. And I do mention this in the book. Like, narcissists and abusers, they do make you on purpose financially independent, financially not independent, financially dependent on them, and take away your financial independence if they can. So the more you rely on them, the more you need them, the better it is for them to control and manipulate you, unfortunately. So, yeah, I strongly recommend that anyone who's in an abusive situation gets professional help. And I hope the book is well received as the educational book, safe sex book, consensual book, insightful book, missing puzzle piece of sexuality solved book that it's designed to be. It's something that I'm going to continue editing until I've finished it and get it published and out there. And then it's going to take a lot of promotion and marketing and efforts to like get the word out. I have to try to get it into bookstores as well, which is going to be another huge challenge for me. But it's something I really want to do if I can. you know, I'd like to get into big bookstores, but even to get into small bookstores independent bookstores will be really helpful. So I need to just spread the word as much as possible. You know, the more we get people understanding asexuality in the context of sexual relationships, the more we can forge understanding between sexuals and asexuals, and hopefully they will start to acknowledge us and accept us for who we are, so we can live in harmony and be just who we are, you know. So I really hope that for the book, you know. Anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you for now. Take care, and I'll see you on the next video live stream. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe and hit the bell icon. Grab a copy of best-selling book, Asexual Perspectives, Love, Life and Sex, A Celebration of Asexual Diversity. There's 47 asexual stories in there. And go and get a copy of Fibromyalgia Self-Help Handbook. This is how to reduce pain in 25 aspects of your life. Autobiographical, and on special offer at the moment for August 2023 because it's Asexual Girl Awareness Month. So yeah, I'll see you soon next video live stream. Stay safe. Love you lots. Stay ace. Bye.